Verse for opening a sutra. The unsurpassed profound and wonderful Dharma is difficult to encounter in hundreds of millions of aeons. I now see and hear it, receive and uphold it, and I vow to fathom the Tathagata's true meaning. The Flower Adornment Sutra, Chapter 39, Entering the Dharma Realm, Part 2, The 10 Good Teachers of the 10 Dwellings. 1. The Dwelling of Bringing Forth the Resolve. At that time, Manjusri Bodhisattva, after speaking the verses, told the youth good wealth, good indeed, good men, you have already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi, to seek the conduct of a Bodhisattva. Good men, if living beings can bring forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi, this is a difficult thing indeed. Moreover, upon bringing forth the resolve, if they further wish to seek the Bodhisattva conduct, this is twice as hard. Good men, if one wishes to accomplish the wisdom of all wisdom, then one must decisively seek a true good-knowing advisor. Good men, in seeking for a good-knowing advisor, do not become weary or lax, and upon seeing a good-knowing advisor, do not become satiated. As to a good-knowing advisor and all his teachings, you must follow and accord. As to expedient devices employed by a good-knowing advisor, do not find faults. Good men, south of here is a kingdom called Supreme Bliss. Within that kingdom is a mountain called Wonderful Summit, and on that mountain is a bhikshu named Cloud of Virtue. Go to where he is and ask him how a bodhisattva studies the bodhisattva conduct, how a bodhisattva cultivates the bodhisattva conduct, up to and including how a bodhisattva can swiftly perfect the conducts of universal worthy. The bhikshu Cloud of Virtue will proclaim all of this for you. At that time, upon hearing this, the youth good wealth leapt for joy. He bowed at his feet, circumambulated him countless times, and gazed up at him with longing admiration. He sorrowfully wept. He bade farewell and took his leave and went south. He went toward the kingdom of supreme bliss and ascended Wonderful Summit Mountain. To the east, west, south, north, the 4 intermediate directions above and below, he looked around and sought, with thirsty aspirations, wishing to see the bhikshu Cloud of Virtue. After 7 days, he espied the bhikshu on another mountain, leisurely taking a stroll. Upon seeing this, he went to bow at his feet, circumambulated him 3 times to the right, and then stopped before him and said, Sagely One, I have already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi, but I do not know yet how a bodhisattva studies the bodhisattva conduct, how he cultivates the bodhisattva conduct, up to and including how he can swiftly perfect the conduct of universal worthy. I heard that the Sagely One is skilled at guiding and teaching. I only hope you will compassionately proclaim how it is that a bodhisattva accomplishes Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. At that time, the bhikshu Cloud of Virtue told good wealth, good indeed, good men, you have already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. Moreover, you can inquire about the bodhisattva conduct. To do such a thing is difficult within the difficult. That is to say, seeking the bodhisattva conduct, seeking the state of a bodhisattva, seeking the path of escape of a bodhisattva, seeking the pure path of a bodhisattva, seeking the pure vast great mind of a bodhisattva, seeking the spiritual penetrations accomplished by a bodhisattva, seeking the liberation doors that a bodhisattva makes appear, seeking the worldly karma manifested by a bodhisattva, seeking the mind of a bodhisattva that accords with living beings, seeking the Bodhisattva's gate of birth and death, and Nirvana, seeking the Bodhisattva's contemplation of the conditioned and unconditioned without any attachment in his mind. Good men, I've attained a comfortable, decisive power of understanding. My eye of faith is pure, and my wisdom light radiates. Universally, I regard all states and have left behind all obstructions. I can skillfully contemplate. My universal eye is lucid and bright. I am replete with pure conduct. I can travel to the countries of the 10 directions, revere and make offerings to all Buddhas. I can forever be mindful of all Buddhas thus come once, unite, uphold the proper Dharma of all Buddhas, and constantly behold all Buddhas of the 10 directions. That is to say, to the eastern direction, seeing one Buddha, 2 Buddhas, 10 Buddhas, 100 Buddhas, 1,000 Buddhas, 100,000 Buddhas, 100,000,000 Buddhas, 1,000,000,000 Buddhas, 1,000 billion Buddhas, 100,000 billion Buddhas, 1,000,000 Nayutas of Buddhas, 100,000,000 Nayutas of Buddhas, 1,000,000,000 Nayutas of Buddhas, 100,000,000,000 Nayutas of Buddhas, to the point of seeing countless, limitless, boundless, unequal, uncountable, inestimable, inconceivable, immeasurable, ineffable, ineffably ineffable Buddhas, to the point of seeing Buddhas as many as dust motes in Jambudvipa, Buddhas as many as dust motes in one set of 4 continents, Buddhas as many as dust motes in 1,000 world systems, Buddhas as many as dust motes in a 2,000 world system, Buddhas as many as dust motes in a 3,000 world system, Buddhas as numerous as dust motes in 10 Buddha Kshetriyas, up to and including Buddhas as many as dust motes in ineffably ineffable Buddha Kshetriyas. As it is in the east, so it is too in the south, west, north, the 4 intermediate directions above and below. In each direction, all of these Buddhas, with their various physical appearances, their various features, their various spiritual penetrations, their various playfulness, their various assemblies which adorn the way places, their various lights that illumine without limit, their various countries, their various lifespans, accord with the various delights in the minds of all living beings. They manifest the various doors of accomplishing proper enlightenment. Within the great assembly, they emit the lion's roar. Good men, I have only obtained this Dharma door of recollecting all the Buddha states of wisdom, light, and universal vision, but how could I possibly know the doors of the conduct of all great Bodhisattvas' boundless, pure wisdom? There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha, with a universally shining wisdom light, whereby one always sees the adornments and purity of the various palaces in all Buddha countries. There is a door of one accords with what pleases living beings' minds and causes them to obtain purity from seeing the Buddhas. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha that enables one to dwell securely within the powers whereby one is caused to enter the thus come one's 10 powers. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha that enables one to dwell securely in the Dharma, whereby one can see limitless Buddhas and listen to Dharma. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of illumining all directions, whereby one can see within all worlds the seas of Buddhas that are equal and without discrimination. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of entry to invisible places, whereby one can see within all subtle and minute states all matters involving the sovereign spiritual penetrations of all Buddhas. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in all kalpas, whereby throughout all kalpas one always sees the acts of giving, done by all Buddhas without leaving them for even a moment. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha, of dwelling throughout all times, whereby in every time, all times, one always sees the dust come once, draws near to them without leaving them. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in all kshetriyas, whereby in all countries one completely sees the Buddha's bodies that transcend everything and are unmatched by anything. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in all worlds, whereby, in accordance with the wishes and delights of one's own mind, one universally sees the dust come once of the three periods of time. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in all states, whereby pervasively in all states one sees the successive appearances of the dust come once. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in still extinction, whereby in a single thought one sees the Buddhas in all kshetriyas manifesting nirvana. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in distant traveling, whereby in a single thought one sees all Buddhas departing from the places where they live. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in vast greatness, whereby one's mind always contemplates all the Buddha's bodies, pervading all Dharma realms. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in subtlety, whereby on a single hair tip ineffable dust come once appear, and one can go to all their places and serve them. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in adornment, whereby in one thought, within all kshetriyas, one sees Buddhas accomplishing equal and proper enlightenment and manifesting spiritual transformations. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in Buddha affairs, whereby one sees all Buddhas appearing in the world, emitting wisdom light and turning the Dharma wheel. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in the comfortable mind, whereby one knows that according to all the wishes and delights of one's own mind, all Buddhas manifest their reflections. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in one's own karma, whereby one knows that according to the karma which living beings accumulate, their own reflections manifest to facilitate their enlightenment. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in spiritual transformations, whereby one sees the Buddha seated on vast great lotus flowers that blossom everywhere throughout the Dharma realm. There is a door of mindfulness of the Buddha of dwelling in empty space, whereby one contemplates all dust come once clouds of bodies that adorn the Dharma realm. And how can I possibly know or speak of such conduct of merit and virtue? Good men, south of here is a kingdom called Gate of the Sea. There is a bhikshu known as Sea Cloud. Go to where he is and ask him how Bodhisattva studies the Bodhisattva conduct and how he cultivates the Bodhisattva path. The bhikshu Sea Cloud can speak discriminately the causal conditions of bringing forth vast, great good roots. Good men, the bhikshu Sea Cloud will enable you to enter the vast, great position of the aids to the way. He will enable you to bring forth the power of vast, great good roots. He will speak for you the causes of bringing forth the Bodhi resolve. He will enable you to give rise to the light of the vast, great vehicle. He will enable you to cultivate the vast, great paramitas. He will enable you to enter the vast, great sea of all conducts. He will enable you to perfect the vast, great wheel of vows. He will enable you to purify the vast, great door of adornments. He will enable you to give rise to the power of vast, great kindness and compassion. At that time, the youth good wealth bowed to the bhikshu cloud of virtue, circumambulated him to the right, gazed up at him, bade farewell, and took his leave. 2. Dwelling on the ground of regulation. At that time, the youth Good Wealth single-mindedly pondered the teaching of the good knowing advisor. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the door of wisdom light. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the Bodhisattva's door of liberation. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the Bodhisattva's door of samadhi. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the Bodhisattva's door to the great sea. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the door of all Buddha's manifestations. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the door of all Buddha's way places. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the door of all Buddha's guiding rules. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the door of all Buddha's equality with the realm of empty space. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the door of all Buddha's successive appearances. With proper mindfulness, he contemplated the door of all Buddha's entries into expedience. He gradually went south until he arrived at the kingdom gate of the sea. At the place of the bhikshu's sea cloud, he bowed at his feet. After circumambulating to the right, he put his palms together before him and said, "Sagely One, I have already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. I wish to enter all of the seas of unsurpassed wisdom, and yet I do not know how a bodhisattva can renounce the mundane home of the world and be born in the thus come one's household, or how one can cross over the sea of birth and death and enter the Buddha's wisdom sea, or how one can leave the ground of an ordinary person and enter the thus come one's grounds, how one can sever the flow of birth and death and enter the flow of the Bodhisattva's conduct, how one can smash the wheel of birth and death and accomplish the Bodhisattva's wheel of vows, how one can destroy the demon states and manifest the Buddha states, how one can dry up the sea of love and desire and increase the sea of great compassion, how one can close all the doors of all difficulties and evil destinies and open all the doors of great nirvana, how one can leave the city of the triple realm and enter the city of all wisdom, how one can renounce all objects of delight and enjoyment and benefit all living beings. At that time, the bhikshu's sea cloud asked the youth Good Wealth, "Good men, have you already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi?" Good Wealth answered, "Yes, I've brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi." Sea Cloud said, "Good men, if living beings have not planted good roots, they cannot bring forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. One must obtain the light of good roots of the door to universality, become replete with the samadhi wisdom light of the true path, give rise to various vast and great seas of blessings, and nurture pristine and pure dharmas without laziness or resting. One must serve good knowing advisors without becoming tired or satiated. One must disregard one's body and life. One must not conceal or hoard. One's mind must be level like the earth without ups and downs. One's nature must always compassionately pity all living beings. With concentrated mindfulness, one must never forsake all destinies of existence. One must constantly take delight in contemplating the thus come one states. In such a way, one can bring forth the Bodhi resolve. As for bringing forth the Bodhi resolve, it means one brings forth a great, compassionate mind in order to universally save all beings. One brings forth a great, kind mind in order to equally protect all worlds. One brings forth a tranquil and happy mind in order to cause all beings to destroy the sufferings. One brings forth a mind of beneficence in order to cause all beings to separate from evil dharmas. One brings forth a sympathetic mind in order to guard all those who are afraid. One brings forth an unobstructed mind, in order to leave behind all obstructions. One brings forth a vast, great mind, in order to pervade all Dharma realms. One brings forth a boundless mind, because one is equal to the realm of empty space, and there is nowhere one does not go. One brings forth a broad, extensive mind, because one sees all the dust come once. One brings forth a pure mind, because one does not contradict the wisdom of the dharmas of the three periods of time. One brings forth the mind of all wisdom, because one universally enters the seas of all wisdom. Good men, I've lived in this country, gate of the sea, for 12 years. I have always regarded the sea as my state. Specifically, I have pondered how the great sea is vast and extensive without measure. I have pondered how the great sea is profoundly deep and hard to fathom. I have pondered the gradual deepening and widening of the great sea. I have pondered the limitless, rare, wonderful, and adorned jewels within the great sea. I have pondered the immeasurable amount of water that is gathered by the great sea. I have pondered the inconceivability of the different colors of the water in the great sea. I have pondered the great sea as the dwelling place for limitless living creatures. I have pondered how the great sea encompasses the various beings with large bodies. I have pondered how the great sea receives the rain that the large clouds pour down. I have pondered how the great sea is without increase or decrease. Good men, when I was contemplating, I also had this thought: within this world, is there anything more broad and extensive than this sea? Is there anything more immeasurable than this sea? Is there anything deeper than this sea? Is there anything more rare and special than this sea? Good men, at the moment I was having that thought, suddenly from the depths of the sea, a large lotus flower emerged. Invincible Indranila jewels made up the stem. Vaidurya gems formed its calyx. Jambunada gold made up its leaves. Sinking in water incense made up its platform. Carnelian formed its fine filaments. It bloomed with a lush fragrance that covered the sea. 1,000,000 Asura kings upheld its stem. 1,000,000 nets adorned with money jewels hovered above it. 1,000,000 dragon kings rained down fragrant water upon it. 1,000,000 Garuda kings dangled from their big strings of beads and jeweled silk ribbons which hung down all around it. 1,000,000 Raksasa kings contemplated it with a mind of kindness. 1,000,000 Yaksha kings bowed to it with reverence. 1,000,000 Gandharva kings praised it with all sorts of music as offerings. 1,000,000 heavenly kings rained down heavenly flowers, heavenly garlands, heavenly fragrances, heavenly burning incense, heavenly paste incense, heavenly powdered incense, wonderful heavenly robes, heavenly banners, streamers, and canopies. 1,000,000 Brahma kings bowed in reverence. 1,000,000 gods from the pure dwelling heavens placed their palms together and made obeisance. 1,000,000 wheel-turning kings each made offerings of adornments of the 7 jewels. 1,000,000 sea spirits appeared simultaneously and respectfully bowed. 1,000,000 light-flavored money jewels universally illumined. 1,000,000 pure blessings money jewels formed an adornment. 1,000,000 universal light money jewels served as its pure treasury. There were 1,000,000 supreme money jewels, their light radiant and dazzling. There were 1,000,000 wonderful treasury money jewels, their light radiating infinitely. There were 1,000,000 Jambu banner money jewels, successively arranged in rows. There were 1,000,000 Vajra lion money jewels, indestructible, pure, and adorning. There were 1,000,000 sun treasury money jewels, vast, great, and pure. There were 1,000,000 delightful money jewels, replete with various colors. There were 1,000,000 as-you-will money jewels, their adornments endless, their effulgence dazzling. This great lotus flower was born from the transcendental good roots of the thus come one's appearances in the world, and was a source of faith and rejoicing for all bodhisattvas. Within the 10 directions worlds, there was no place where it did not appear. It was born from dharmas that are like an illusion. It was born from dharmas that are like a dream. It was born from pure karma. It was adorned by the Dharma door of non-contention. It entered the seal of the unconditioned. It dwelt in the door of non-obstruction. It filled up all countries of the 10 directions. It complied with the most profound states of the Buddhas throughout countless hundreds of thousands of kalpas. Its merit and virtue could not be praised to exhaustion. At that time, I saw atop the lotus flower a thus come one seated in full lotus, his body extended all the way up to the summit of existence. His jeweled lotus flower throne was inconceivable. His way places and assembly were inconceivable. The accomplishment of his marks was inconceivable. The perfection of his minor characteristics was inconceivable. His spiritual penetrations and transformations were inconceivable. The purity of his physical characteristics was inconceivable. The mark of his invisible crown was inconceivable. His vast and long tongue was inconceivable. His good and clever speech was inconceivable. The full and resonant sounds of his voice were inconceivable. His boundless powers were inconceivable. His pure fearlessnesses were inconceivable. His vast, great eloquences were inconceivable. Moreover, I recollected that the conducts this Buddha had cultivated in the past were inconceivable, that his accomplishments of the way with self-mastery were inconceivable, that the wonderful voices with which he proclaimed Dharma were inconceivable, that his universal door of manifesting all sorts of adornments was inconceivable, that everything around him was inconceivable, each singularly distinctive to look at, that his perfection of all benefits was inconceivable. At that time, the thus come one stretched out his right hand and rubbed me on the crown and spoke for me, the universal I, Dharma door. It revealed the states of all thus come ones. It disclosed and expounded all conducts of all bodhisattvas. It explained the wonderful dharmas of all Buddhas. All wheels of Dharma entered within it. It could purify all Buddha countries. It could defeat all heterodox ways and deviant theories. It could destroy all demon armies. It could cause all living beings to be happy. It could illuminate the workings of activity in all beings' minds. It could understand the faculties of all beings. According to living beings' hearts, it could cause them to become enlightened. From the place of that thus come one, I heard of this Dharma door. I received, upheld, and recited it. I mindfully recollected it and held it in contemplation. If someone used as much ink as there is water in the great seas, and a stack of pens as high as Mount Sumeru to write out this universal I Dharma door, he would not express the slightest fraction of a single door within a single chapter, or a single Dharma within a single door, or a single meaning within a single Dharma, or a single phrase within a single meaning. How much the less would he be able to thoroughly exhaust it? Good men, I've lived at that Buddhist place for 1200 years, receiving and upholding this universal I Dharma door, day after day, through the Dharani brightness of listening and holding. I receive countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of the door of quiet stillness, I enter countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of boundless revolvings, I universally enter countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of contemplation according to the grounds, I discriminate countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of awesome power, I universally gather in countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of lotus flower adornments, I discover countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of the sounds of pure words, I proclaim countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of the treasury of empty space, I manifest countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of accumulated radiance, I increase and expand countless chapters. Through the Dharani brightness of the treasury of seas, I expound and analyze countless chapters. If living beings arrive from the 10 directions, whether gods or heavenly kings, dragons or dragon kings, yakshas or yaksha kings, Gandharvas or Gandharva kings, asuras or asura kings, Garudas or Garuda kings, Kinnaras or Kinnara kings, Mahoragas or Mahoraga kings, humans or human kings, Brahmas or Brahma kings, for all these beings who come to where I am, I give thorough instruction, explanation, exaltation, and praise. I cause them all to delight in, enter into, and dwell securely in this universal I Dharma door of the light of all Buddhas and Bodhisattvas' conducts. Good men, I only know this universal I Dharma door, but as to how all Bodhisattvas, Mahasattvas, deeply enter the sea of all Bodhisattva conducts in order to follow their vow power in cultivation, how they enter the sea of great vows in order to dwell for limitless kalpas in the world, how they enter the sea of all living beings in accord with their mind's delights so as to vastly benefit them, how they enter the sea of all living beings' hearts in order to bring forth unobstructed wisdom light of the 10 powers, how they enter the sea of all living beings' faculties in order to teach and transform them at the opportune time and make them all tamed and subdued, how they enter the sea of all kshatriyas in order to fulfill their original vows to adorn and purify Buddha kshatriyas, how they enter the sea of all Buddhas because they have vowed to forever make offerings to all thus come ones, how they enter the sea of all dharmas because they can enlighten to all of them through wisdom, how they enter the sea of all merits and virtues in order to cultivate each one of them to perfection, how they enter the sea of all living beings' languages and words in order within all kshatriyas to turn the proper dharma wheel. How could I possibly know or speak of such conduct of merit and virtue? Good men, travel to the south for 60 yojanas. Along the road to Lanka, there is a village called Seashore. There is a bhikshu there called Good Dwelling. Go there and ask him how one purifies the bodhisattva conduct. At that time, the youth Good Wealth bowed at the feet of Sea Cloud, circumambulated him to the right, gazed up in admiration at him, bade farewell, and took his leave. 3. Dwelling of cultivation. At that time, the youth Good Wealth single-mindedly recollected the teachings of his good-knowing advisor. He single-mindedly recollected the universal I Dharma door. He single-mindedly recollected the Buddha's spiritual powers. He single-mindedly held the clouds of phrases of Dharma. He single-mindedly entered the door of the sea of Dharma. He single-mindedly pondered the differences in dharmas. He deeply entered the whirlpool of Dharma. He universally entered the emptiness of Dharma. He purified the cataract-like obstructions to Dharma. He contemplated the place of Dharma treasures. He gradually proceeded south on the road to Lanka and arrived at the village Seashore. He looked throughout the 10 directions in search of good dwelling. He saw the bhikshu walking back and forth in empty space, while a countless number of gods surrounded him in veneration. Heavenly flowers were strewn, while heavenly music played, and countless streamers, banners, silken fabrics, and garments filled up empty space as offerings. All the great dragon kings in empty space wrought inconceivable clouds of sinking in water fragrance, and roused the thunder and stirred up the lightning as an offering. Kinara kings played various kinds of music, praising him in accordance with Dharma as an offering. Mahoraga kings twirled and billowed inconceivable, exquisitely fine garments, ornamenting empty space, and from their hearts bringing forth joyous delight as an offering. Asura kings wrought inconceivable clouds of money gems, which, with their measureless lights and all sorts of adornments, pervaded empty space as an offering. Garuda kings transformed themselves into the shapes of pure youths, surrounded by measureless heavenly maidens, and ultimately accomplished the mind of no killing or harming. In empty space they put their palms together as an offering. There were an inconceivable number of Raksasa ghost kings, surrounded by measureless Raksasas, the shapes tall, gigantic, and fearsome. Upon seeing the compassionate ease and comfort of the bhikshu good dwelling, they bowed, put their palms together, and gazed up in admiration. An inconceivable number of Yaksha ghost kings, each of them circumambulated by their retinues, were stationed on all four sides, respectfully guarding and protective. An inconceivable number of Brahma heaven kings bowed in empty space, put their palms together, and used human dharmas as praises and glorification. An inconceivable number of gods from the pure dwelling heavens were in empty space, replete with their palaces. They respectfully put their palms together and brought forth magnanimous vows. When the youth good wealth beheld all of these events, his heart grew joyous. Putting his palms together and respectfully making obeisance, he said, Sagely One, I have already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. However, I still do not know how a bodhisattva cultivates Buddha Dharmas, how he accumulates Buddha Dharmas, how he becomes endowed with Buddha Dharmas, how he becomes saturated with Buddha Dharmas, how he increases and grows in Buddha Dharmas, how he unites and gathers in Buddha Dharmas, how he brings Buddha Dharmas to the ultimate, how he purifies and regulates Buddha Dharmas, how he profoundly purifies Buddha Dharmas, how he penetrates Buddha Dharmas. I heard that the Sagely One is adept at guiding and teaching. I wish you will compassionately tell me how a bodhisattva never gives up seeing the Buddhas, but forever diligently cultivates where they are, how a bodhisattva never forsakes other bodhisattvas, but shares with them the same good roots, how a bodhisattva does not renounce Buddha Dharmas, but obtains understanding and certification from wisdom, how a bodhisattva does not renounce great vows, but can universally benefit all living beings, how a bodhisattva does not renounce the multitude of conducts, but dwells throughout all kalpas without his mind becoming tired, how a bodhisattva does not renounce the Buddha Kshatriyas, but universally adorns and purifies all worlds, how a bodhisattva does not renounce the Buddha's powers, but knows and sees the thus come one's ease and comfort, how a bodhisattva does not renounce conditioned existence, and yet also does not dwell in it, but universally in all destinies of existence, just like transformations, makes appear the undergoing of birth and death, and cultivates the bodhisattva conduct, how a bodhisattva does not renounce hearing the Dharma, but can completely comprehend and receive the proper teachings of all Buddhas, how a bodhisattva does not renounce the light of wisdom, but universally enters the place of operation of wisdom of the three periods of time. At that time, the bhikshu good dwelling said to good wealth, good indeed, good men, you have already brought forth the resolve for Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi, and now you have furthermore brought forth the resolve to inquire about Buddha Dharmas, the Dharmas of all wisdom, and the Dharmas of the self-produced. Good men, I have already accomplished an unobstructed liberation door of a bodhisattva, whether in coming or going, in moving or stopping, I can consider accordingly. I cultivate and contemplate and immediately obtain a wisdom light, which is called ultimate non-obstruction. Because I've attained this wisdom light, I know of the activities in the minds of all living beings without obstruction. I know of the deaths and births of all living beings without obstruction. I know of the past lives of all living beings without obstruction. I know all the events of living beings in future kalpas without obstruction. I know all the events of living beings in the present period without obstruction. I know all the varieties of languages, speech and sounds of all living beings without obstruction. I resolve the doubts and questions of all living beings without obstruction. I know all the faculties of living beings without obstruction. According to when all living beings should be transformed, I can go and attend to them without obstruction. I know all kashanas, lapas, muhurtas, time periods of days and nights without obstruction. I know the successive flowing and turnings of the sea of the three periods of time without obstruction. My body can travel everywhere to all Buddha Kshetriyas of the 10 directions without obstruction. Why is this? Because I've attained the psychic power of non-dwelling and non-doing. Good men, upon attaining the power of such spiritual penetrations, I can cause in empty space, or walk, or stand, or sit, or recline. I can conceal or reveal myself. I can manifest one body, or manifest many bodies. I can penetrate through walls as if through empty space. Within empty space, I sit in full lotus and come and go at ease, just like a bird in flight. I can enter into the earth as though it were water. I can tread on water as though it were earth. From the upper and lower parts of my body, I can universally emit smoke and flames like a big burning fire, or at times I quake all of the great earth. At other times my hands touch the sun and moon. I manifest a body that is tall enough to reach the Brahma palaces, or manifest burning incense clouds, or manifest jeweled flaming clouds, or manifest transforming clouds, or manifest brightness net clouds, all of them vast and great, covering the 10 directions. Or within one thought, I can travel east through one world, 2 worlds, 100 worlds, 1,000 worlds, 100,000 worlds, to the extent of measureless worlds, to the extent of ineffably ineffable worlds, or I can traverse worlds in number like dust motes in Jambudvipa, or traverse worlds in number like dust motes within ineffably ineffable Buddha Kshetriyas, and within all these Buddha countries, before the Buddhas whirl on at once, I listen to them speak the Dharma. Within each of those Buddha's places, I manifest as many different bodies as there are dust motes in limitless Buddha Kshetriyas. From each body, I rain down clouds of offerings in number, like dust motes in limitless Buddha Kshetriyas. Specifically, clouds of all flowers, clouds of all incense, clouds of all garlands, clouds of all powdered incense, clouds of all paste incense, clouds of all canopies, clouds of all garments, clouds of all banners, clouds of all streamers, and clouds of all curtains. I make these offerings with clouds of all bodies. I receive and uphold everything that each thus come one proclaims. I remember all the adornments in each country. As it is in the east, so too in the south, west, north, and for intermediate directions above and below. It is the same way. Within all of these worlds, if there are any living beings who see my form, they will certainly attain Anuttara Sankhya Sambodhi. I can clearly see all living beings in all of these worlds, according to whether they are large or small, superior or inferior, suffering or joyous. I manifest in a form similar to theirs to teach and transform them and bring them to accomplishment. If there are living beings who draw near to me, I will cause them all to dwell securely in this Dharma door. Good men, I only know this unobstructed liberation door of universally and swiftly making offerings to all Buddhas and bringing all living beings to accomplishment. But as to how all bodhisattvas hold the precepts of great compassion, the precepts of paramita, the precepts of the great vehicle, the precepts of connection with the bodhisattva path, the precepts of non-obstruction, the precepts of not retreating and not falling, the precepts of not abandoning the Bodhi mind, the precepts of constantly using Buddha Dharmas as one's basis, the precepts of being attentive to all wisdom, the precepts of being like empty space, the precepts of depending on nothing within all worlds, the precepts of no loss, the precepts of no deficiency, the precepts of no lack, the precepts of no admixture, the precepts of no turbidity, the precepts of no regret, the precepts of purity, the precepts of being apart from dust, the precepts of being apart from filth. How could I possibly know or speak of all of their merit and virtue? Good men, south of here is a country called Dramidapatana. In a city called Comfort and Ease is a person known as Mega. Go to where he is and ask him how a bodhisattva studies the bodhisattva conduct and how he cultivates the bodhisattva path. At that time, the youth good wealth bowed at his feet. He circumambulated him to the right, gazing up at him with longing admiration. Then he bade farewell and took his leave.